episode of CP Conversations with your host, Nicole Luongo. Since we're already in February of 2021, how did that happen? I don't really know. I thought it would be a good time to talk about self-care, and boy, do I have the perfect guest to introduce all of you to. She's my friend, and her name is Kathy O'Connell. Kathy is the Director of Radiant Abilities, LLC, which provides resources and products for people with disabilities in the areas of self-esteem, relationships, personal empowerment, and living the life you want. Kathy has a specialized focus in helping people with disabilities with dating and relationship success. She works from the premise of a healthy self-esteem, increased confidence, and good boundaries that build the foundation for success in dating, relationships, and sexuality. Kathy's work in this area also includes providing staff trainings, teaching at Syracuse University's Inclusive U, teaching community classes, creating an online course, and speaking on dating, relationships, and sexuality at conferences. Kathy is a licensed mental health counselor and certified rehabilitation counselor. So please welcome my friend, Kathy. It's so great to speak with you today, Kathy. Thank you. What I wanted to talk to you about today is we're going to cover a couple of topics, and the first one is how parents can empower their child at any age with a healthy sense of self. And as you know, a healthy sense of self is a huge factor when it comes to loving ourselves and self-love. And for people who don't know you have cerebral palsy. So I was interested in learning, A, from your perspective, what is self-love? And B, what was your childhood like having cerebral palsy? And did you have self-love at that time for your disability?
Mm-hmm. So to me, self-love is the ability to love, honor, and value all of who you are. And when I say all, I mean both your strengths and your weaknesses. And being able to accept all of it adds to the beautiful package that you are. And for disability specific, I would say that included in that is the ability to really own your disability as a natural part of who you are and be out in the world as a person with a disability.
Yeah, I love that because you're an example of that. You're out in the world, you have a family, you're married, you have a son, you own your own business, and you have your other business counseling and helping people with disabilities. So you're out there. Were you always like that?
I would say so. The second part of your question is the where did I forget exactly, but where did I learn self-love? And that was from my parents. Who, when I was born, they had no clue how to raise a child with CB. But luckily, I was the last of their 4 children. So they were experienced parents, and by the time I came along, and their premise was, and I very much adopted this, that I should be able to live how I want to live. And yes, I would have challenges and obstacles along the way, but that should not deter me from the life I wanted to create for myself. And that's why I'm passionate about working with other people.
So your parents actually talked to you about your disability? I'm curious because I'm the youngest of 11 and my parents didn't talk to me about it. They had no clue, like you were saying, how to raise, a child with a disability.
Well, probably one of the most important stories that I take away from how they raised me was I have three older brothers who were very much older than me. They were aged 13 to 9 by the time I came along. And when my parents got the diagnosis for me and went home to tell my brothers, my father simply put it, well, she has cerebral palsy, and that means that she may need a little help along the way. And my parents were very simple and very direct. So I think I learned from the example to always acknowledge it, but that it did not take up the whole conversation.
Okay. Wow, that's really cool. And as you grew older, did you have some challenges in your life as a result of having CP?
Yes, now one of the biggest challenges, and again, I'm from a older generation, so when I began school as a kindergartner, it was before inclusive education was illegal. So I went to the quote unquote cerebral school, which was 45 minutes away from my house. Now, the school where all my brothers went was 5 minutes from my house, and that's where all my neighborhood friends went. So I'm like, why am I being put on this bus to go 45 minutes one way to be educated? And then I got there and they were teaching me things that I already knew, like how to tell time. Because my mother was, from the get-go, she read to me. So I already knew things. So long story short, I hated it there. And but sometimes my parents were rule followers and they wanted me to go there. So I began doing what comes very natural to a 7-year-old. And every day when the bus came, I would go into a full out temper tantrum about not wanting to go. And I did that for 6 weeks. And finally, my mother caved in and said, okay, we are finding you a way to go to school with everyone else.
Wow. So you went to that school for 2 years?
Um, yeah, kindergarten, first grade, and the very first and part, second grade.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was at a time where it wasn't really second grade. There were older kids clumped in. There were kids who did not appear to have any physical disability, but behavioral issues. And
So do you think that early experience shaped you a little bit?
it shaped my whole life.
Really?
because he, even though I was only 7 and I didn't really know what I was doing except following what I wanted, it shaped it like solidified that I always need to listen to myself and make decisions that may go against other people, but know that I trust what I need to do is the best thing for me.
And that's important because, again, we're talking about self love. You have to love yourself enough to trust yourself.
Right.
And,
Right.
I'm guilty of sometimes, oh, what do other people think? And, oh, they don't like the decision I make. But you're the one living your life, especially when you get to be an adult. Now, it's different for parents, and we'll talk about that. And for parents who are listening, what advice would you give them? Let's say if they have a child with CP or any other disability, say they're 7, like you were. In today's day and age, what do you think they might be struggling with, and some tips of what they can do?
I would recommend it, and I'm a mother, so I know how hard it's can be to really listen to your child because it was ultimately my mom who listened to me um, and pulled me out of that school. But had I not done that, I think something within me would have died. And that sounds very dramatic, but I think that by doing that, it gave me the courage I needed for a whole life of challenges and trying to figure out what was the best for me because as parents, our ultimate mission is to teach our kids to listen and make decisions on what's the best for them.
Do you think that's harder for parents who have children with disabilities?
Yes, yes, yes. I think it's very hard. And I saw my dad struggle with that a little more than my mom. Like he did not want me leaving that school because he was scared that I wouldn't get what I needed. And then fast and forward, I'm 16 and I want to drive. And he was scared about that, but he was the one taking me out, and you know, so um, yeah, I think that it's really hard because that's the things that most people with disabilities are more vulnerable. So, and living in life is vulnerable enough. And then you have
It's true.
extra layers of vulnerability, which again is why you really need to strengthen that inner resolve in your children of listening to themselves.
Is there anything that people can do at home? Like, how we're all at home now, and some people might have more time than they did before because they don't have to go outside of the house for work. If there's ways that people want to practice self love, or a simple exercise that a parent can do with their child, what do you do with your son?
With my son, it's more the moments where I catch him saying something where he doubts himself, and then I use it as an opportunity
So
to say,
a teaching opportunity.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. but but in terms of having kids with self-love, I would say for kids particularly that it's probably really good. And this is on my mind because I'm reading Judith Human's autobiography. And in the beginning, she talks about being a kid.
Can you remind our audience who she is, the trailblazer that she is?
If you've seen Crook Camp, she is in Crook Camp, but and I could be wrong about this, but I think I'm right, that she was the former head of Health and Human Services under Bill Clinton. I could be wrong about that. But anyway, Judy is a great advocate who acquired polio at a very young age and grew up in the 1950s using a wheelchair. And the beginning of her book talks about being a little kid. And they thought, oh my gosh, children with disabilities need to read this or be read it by their parents so that they know they're not alone. And so that they know that saying it gets better really does happen, that you get through the hard times of being a kid and you can grow up to have all these choices and do all these wonderful things.
Yeah, that's a great story. Now, didn't she was a trailblazer because didn't she participate in like sit-ins to?
Yeah, she was instrumental in the no, it gives a bit to even before ADA to 1970s. The I can't think of the proper name of the law, but it helped begin the to address the employment discrimination of people with disabilities.
Wow. Yep, she's incredible.
Yeah.
So what part of the book, that beginning part of the book, what did it say that really touched you?
It was just the every day that like she begins to talk about. She grew up in Brooklyn and going down the street to her friend's house, but she couldn't get up the stairs. So all she could do was out in the sidewalk yell, hey, can someone so come out and play?
Wow.
So.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's even though we've come some way, there's still a lot to do as far as accessibility and just that one topic alone.
Right.
But and I know you a little bit, so I could tell people that you're an author of a book. It's a fantastic book. I suggest that they buy it and read it. And in your book, you talk about how you always didn't accept your disability. Is that the right way, that you would describe?
Right, because again, I grew up in a different time, so even though I had very supportive, loving parents, I was also often the only one throughout my whole childhood with a disability.
Me too.
So I was always the different one. So I would say, looking back now, that it wasn't so much accepting my disability, but accepting being different and being okay with being different. Instead of it being something looked at or whispered about,
Mm-hmm.
I often equate it to coming out gay. That you come out as a person with a disability. And
Did you ever try to, and I know for you it might be a little harder to do this, but to hide that you had a disability? Because
oh
you
yeah.
because you worked, you were out in the professional world and all that. I mean, did you ever try to hide it or minimize it? And if so, what did you do?
Well, and this thing kind of slides into the work I did now with dating. But the times I would try to hide it, and I laugh at this now, was when I would go out with my friends when I was in my 20s, go out to bars, and I would meet a guy, and I'm embarrassed, and they'd say that now, but I would try not to move that much. It would survive in the bar so he couldn't detect my accent. So those were the times, and because dating and relationships was by far the hardest challenge of living with a disability that I encountered.
What are some of the hurdles that you came across when you started dating?
Well, I didn't have the word for it then, but I do have the word for it now. And I call it sexual ableism. And by that I mean it's much like we're dealing with racism. It's a belief in society that because of the very presence of your disability, you are then looked as inferior in the realm of dating and relationships.
Wow.
And we don't talk about that as a
No.
society.
No. I mean, did anybody talk to you about it? Like as you started getting older, like your parents or your brothers or maybe a friend, did you talk about, hey, you're getting older, you're a woman, you want to date. It's a natural thing to want to do. Whether you have a disability or not doesn't matter, right?
Well, no one really came out and talked to me about it. I think in many ways my mom didn't know how to, and she knew that that would be a challenge for me because of how other people are. And I think she just did not know how to talk to me about it. And I, being young and feeling this way, and feeling how hard it was, didn't always have the words or the vocabulary. And the problem was I took it inward.
You felt bad about yourself, or maybe that something was
Yeah,
wrong with
yeah,
you.
yeah, yeah. Because I have lots of friends who would go on dates and have boyfriends, and that was happening for me. And I think what happened was the more I felt the sexual ableism of others, the more I contracted and became insecure, and so it was like
double-edged. It was kind of,
yeah,
it kept going without
yeah,
you really
yeah,
wanting it
yeah.
to. And how do you think that plays out in society today? Like, I'm trying to think of an example we could give. I love the term that you're using, sexual ableism. And for those people who don't know the term ableism, how do you define that?
Okay, ableism is a view that you're inferior simply because of the presence of your disability.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I would venture to say that people who watch this and listen to this, if they have a disability or they have a child with a disability, they're going to know what that feels like.
Right,
Yeah. I don't
right,
know about
yeah,
you, but I was bullied as a child because I had a disability, just exactly
right,
what you're saying. Now, it's possible I would have been had I not had a disability, but the reason why I was is because I was different and I
right,
walked different.
right, right, right. And boys have a hard time with any difference.
Yes, right.
No.
So, how did you learn to? Because obviously, now you're married, now you have a family. How did you get from that young teenager or adolescent woman who was trying to date and coming across the sexual ableism that existed to this woman now who I know and love, who is out with her disability? You're proud about having a disability, and you're helping other people to live better lives with their disabilities.
Well, I joke about in some serious. It took a lot of therapy. But on the very real side of that comment, I do suggest that working on yourself is the number one factor that can help you work through sexual ableism in general, because for me it took a combination of things. It took me being really real that, hey, you know what? Not every person that I meet will want to date me because of my disability. And
Right.
I had to be okay with that. And also I had to keep coming back to my vision for myself. And then my entire life, I always wanted to eventually find someone to marry and have a family. I know that that's not for everyone. It was something important for me. So during those hard years, I would keep coming back to that desire that I have for myself and saying, okay, I had this hardship of dating with a disability, but I can't turn off what I still want from my life. So how am I gonna get there? Because
Right.
the ableism is still there. Well, my way of getting there was just, becoming really comfortable
Mm.
with who I was,
Yeah.
believing that I had a lot to offer as
Mm-hmm.
a potential partner, and kind of getting laser beam focus, not on other people, but on what I wanted for myself. Because when we're dating, we really can mess up if we focus too much on the
other person.
And we gotta focus on ourselves. So, so I just think I really focused on, okay, people may be uncomfortable with me. That has nothing to do with me. And I have a lot to offer. So let's focus on that and finding someone who's looking for what I have to offer.
That was a great conversation with Kathy O'Connell. We will continue this on the next episode.